Welcome to the Dance Science Podcast. I'm your host, the Dance Scientist, and the Dance Science Podcast intends to build connections and drive discussion on how we can improve our field and make dance science more normalized. Thank you for being here, and please enjoy today's episode. Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for being here with me today. I'm your host, the Dance Scientist, and today is episode number 31. We're going to have another amazing guest speaker today. Her name is Michelle, and she is a dance psychology researcher. So, first, I just want to say thank you so much for being here with us today and taking time out of your day.
Thank you for having me.
Yes. So, first, can you tell us a little bit about your journey, being a dancer at a young age, and then what led you into the path of becoming a researcher in dance psychology?
Yeah, so I've actually started dancing quite late. I was around 14 years old, and I'm from Switzerland, so I started in a youth ensemble or youth company. It doesn't exist in that kind of format anymore. And I've mostly done contemporary, actually. That was kind of my thing. Until my dance teacher at the youth ensemble said, oh, you should kind of be a bit broader and do some acting too. So I did actually some drama and acting quite a lot and got really into it. And I thought like, oh, maybe I'm not going to go into dance because I felt like the dance culture at this particular theatre was quite harsh and tough. So I kind of reconvened a little bit when I started to think about auditioning. I thought, should I go into dance or acting? And I went into drama. I then auditioned to the Art and Culture of Arts in the UK, which is not existing anymore. It's now Falmouth University in Cornwall. And it was actually quite a nice experience because it was a very broad education. So I could still dance, but I was a drama major as well.
Oh.
So I could still kind of go in between a little bit, which is nice. It's almost like they gave me time to procrastinate my decision what to do in a way. So I did that for a year. And then I thought it's a lot of practice I did. I was just kind of dancing and acting and doing devising. And I felt like I wanted to know more about how people train and how people tick. And actually then went to Oslo and did my bachelor's there. But that was just in drama and movement practices. It was called. It was mostly drama. It was mostly theory. But I really, really enjoyed it because it gave me these years to just kind of elaborate on the theories that I wanted to know about. And then dance kind of went a bit into the background. And when I was done with my master's, I did the bachelor's and master's there. The drama department closed while I was a master's student there.
Oh.
Yeah, it was very strange. It was a very strange thing happening. And we were all very surprised, like, oh, okay, what's happening now? Kind of to the arts in Norway. It was a very interesting time. So they kind of reconvened everything to another city. But I was done. At that point, I was a bit lost. I didn't quite know what to do. And then went into teaching, or kind of teaching found me. I was approached to teach. I was always in awe of people teaching because I always thought, you must be so good to do it. And I never thought I would be good at doing it, but they kind of encouraged me to do some dance classes and some drama classes, which I did. I did that for, I think, around 6 years in different schools and kindergartens. And then went for another year back to university and did a teaching degree to really get it right, I felt. Because I felt like there was so much I didn't know. And I just really, really wanted to be that support that the children and young people needed. And I did it in drama and movement practices again. So I went back and I specialized in that. And while I did that, I really got back into dance. After my son was born, my son is 11 now, so it's 11 years ago. I had a really difficult pregnancy, and I thought, I actually really miss it. Wouldn't it be nice to go back to it? And I very slowly started going back to it. And that's when I read about the dance science course in Bern, in Switzerland.
I love that.
That's when it all happened for me. Because I always felt like something is kind of missing. I don't do what I should do. I like teaching, but kind of something's missing. So I did this course in Bern. And I don't know if you know the course in Bern. No. It's block based, so I could work full time and go every weekend,
Oh, I
or every
see.
month. It was in the beginning once a month,
Mm-hmm.
and fly to Bern, do a blog course on anything dance science, and then fly back. And it was completely. I mean, even my friends were like, "You are crazy.
Crazy.
This is crazy. You're not going to do it, and it's not going to last." But it really did, because
Hmm.
I felt I finally found my home.
Mm.
I did that course, because finally I could make sense of how dancers are training,
Mm-hmm.
what they need physically, but also mentally. I found my little niche in dance psychology.
Mm.
It all made sense. So yeah, I was really at home there. That's how I have done another master's, my master's in dance science, and I met Dr. Sana Nodin Bates, who's now my supervisor for my PhD as well.
Oh, okay.
Spoiler alert, I do a PhD. This is where this is going. And had a great time working with her. And through her, I got to know other people in Oslo.
Mm.
One of them was Dr. Heidi Haraldsen, and she was at the Oslo National Academy of the Arts, where the Norwegian National Ballet School is.
Mm.
And she asked me upon graduation to come and join her and work with her as a research assistant and program coordinator. So I worked there and started mentoring dancers
Hmm.
as well, while doing a little bit more CBT courses and other courses in dance psychology.
And,
Yeah.
I'm curious because you were talking a lot about like obviously your dance science education, then you like got specifically into the dance psychology stuff. So, did you ever have dance science like as like an undergrad or like even in your master's? Did you ever have it at an early age?
No,
No?
no, not.
Okay.
That's one thing that really kind of amazed me, because
Mm.
I didn't know it existed
Yep.
until I stumbled upon it. While of course thinking, oh my God, somebody should really look into this, from when I was 14 and started dancing and acting, when I
Yeah.
thought, oh, all these people would need so much help. And they even said to me, I mean, professional dancers working there and singers and actors, they all were like, we would need so much help to get a regime going or get somebody listening to us. So yeah.
Oh, because they were saying that they have a hard time getting listened. I see. I see. Getting like heard, basically. I see.
Yeah, heard,
So,
or getting kind of the follow up they needed. Sometimes
mm,
they were a bit more maybe critical
mm,
to how things were, especially dancers that were, because we had a contemporary dance company, not a
mm,
ballet company, and they were very open to science and always
mm,
said, we don't quite think what we do is still up to date with what
right.
athletes do, for example. And they
Right.
had friends that were athletes. So that was always really interesting. I always thought that's interesting to
Yes.
say that. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. In my master's, I got to study a lot of different athletes. And now I kind of like compare the two in my head all the time because athletes are far ahead from us for sure.
Definitely. And I
Yeah.
do think that certain ballet companies or artistic directors do know that they're interested
Yes.
in it.
Yeah.
I was very lucky in Oslo that they are very interested in it. They
Yeah.
know there is this difference.
Yeah, and I guess that's a good thing to point out because I think sometimes people assume that when I say like a lot of those like negatives that I just said, people think that I mean like sweeping across the whole world, but I know that there are really good companies out there who are open-minded and at least willing to listen, right? If you're just willing to listen a little bit and just like, "Oh, that's interesting. Maybe we should read that, Maybe we can try that, So yeah, I know that there are some really good companies out there. I just wish it was more mainstream for sure.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. And I see that there is a huge barrier still, that
Yeah.
it's not extreme. That there are these
Yes.
few that like to do something. They can't do everything that we would want to see,
Right.
maybe, but they do try.
Yes. Small things are better than nothing, right? Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
I definitely.
So, through your specialization as being now a research in dance psychology, how do you see this contributing to the big picture of dance science?
Well, dance psychology was always a bit like on the back foot or a bit neglected within dance science in a way, because we know a lot or more about the physical aspects and challenges that
Mm,
dancers go through. And we always felt when we like looked at conferences as well how psychology was represented.
mm.
It was always a bit a minority, wasn't it? It was always there,
It
but
was like
it was
barely there.
barely there. Yeah,
Barely.
and I mean there are amazing people that did amazing research, like Dr. Paula Thompson, for example. and Linda Manwaring, they were people that were always there kind of doing these things.
And a lot on like they did a lot on injuries too, right? Like the
Exactly,
perception
yeah.
of
They did a
injuries.
lot on
Yeah.
injuries.
Yeah.
Yeah. We still know very little actually about the dancer's mind.
Yeah. Isn't that interesting?
It is. I mean, it gives a lot of opportunity, and that's
Mm,
why I'm always hoping it gives other students out there, undergrads, master students, anybody, a kind of kick to think
yeah.
this might they want to do, maybe.
Yes. Because
Yeah.
not much has been done. I mean,
No. I mean, I'm doing my PhD on mental skills training,
mm,
trying to create a program for dancers
mm.
to follow. And we see there's very little framework, very little about mental health. I've done a scoping review of mental health, and we see there's very little done, really.
And
Shockingly.
I'm curious too, what's like the most common age that you gear your stuff towards? Or like when you said you were teaching a lot across like different studios and companies, what was your most common age?
Between 15 and 18,
I see. Okay.
mainly vocational dancers, I
Okay.
would say. Yeah, definitely. I feel when it came to professional dancers, that people were very protective
Mm.
of their time, of their schedules, and of what they might hear, or maybe then they get ideas. They always said they might get ideas. It's like, yeah, I
Mm.
hope so. But yeah, they're always be like careful.
I
So it's been,
see. So sometimes they're a little more closed off, you would say?
yeah, can
Mhm.
be. But I do think mostly it is to protect their time
Yeah.
because they are a bit afraid that it might get too much, that they do a lot. That's kind of the impression I got.
Right. Like if they're already like close to burnout, it's like how much more can they handle?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But at the same time, when I'm looking at vocational dancers, how
Mhm.
much they have to do and get through, I do think it's a bit the same problem often.
It's insane.
Yeah,
Even
it
even at a
is.
younger age, I mean, it's crazy.
Right.
It's
And you always think like, shouldn't they rest more? Shouldn't there be kind of
mm,
periodization,
mm,
something
yeah.
to support them? And I think some try to do that.
Mhm.
And of course, then when you come in with the psychology and mindset kind of aspects, then mostly there's no space for that. Or they say, no, we have enough to do. So it's also a flip side to that a little bit.
And so, like, if you were to kind of like define why you think dance psychology is important, like maybe let's use like the analogy of maybe we have like a professional ballet dancer who's like highly, highly skilled, but maybe they're overcoming some like mental hurdles. So, is how would you kind of define how dance psychology like plays a role in also dancers' physical technique and physical strength?
I mean, as a dance scientist, I think anyway, a dancer is a holistic human being.
Mm,
Everything goes together.
mm,
Nothing is ever kind of isolated from each other. So I think in that sense, dance psychology just gives an opportunity to actually enhance performance. So
mhm,
if this hurdle is now setting up for injuries, or you're feeling like I don't get this choreography right, and it's kind of my mind playing tricks on me, or
mm,
there are negative emotions and negative thoughts being my way. I feel that dance psychology really can help you there to overcome that, to
mm,
address it. And to me, dance psychology is not just about dancing skills, it's about life
mm.
skills.
Oh, I
It's
like that. Yeah.
about that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I like how you were kind of defining it too. And I think even like the educators are going to play a really important role if a dancer is dealing with those mental hurdles, right? But then
Yeah.
it's hard because like they're also not researchers in dance psychology and they're not dance psychologists. So it's like sometimes it's like how do they teeter that line without crossing boundaries, right?
Exactly. We talked a lot about that, how much educators have to be,
Mm.
and what kind of hats do they have to wear. Because I feel for my time as educator, I wore a lot of hats that I shouldn't
Oh
have to
yeah.
wear. So I feel like there shouldn't have to be these psychologists
Mm.
or sociologists or like educating children outside the dance studio in a way, but still they have to do that.
Mm.
So we talk very little about who a dance educator should actually be
Mm.
and how much responsibility should they have versus should they have a team around them with other people supporting them in
Mhm.
what they don't know.
Mm. And the other thing is I think it's really hard for dancers from a young age feeling all the pressures that they feel nowadays. pressures
Definitely, definitely.
to just be perfect, right? At like the age of 7, it's like if they can't do X, Y, and Z, they're like shunned, right?
Yeah, and I mean, many move away from home, we know that. So they're mostly homesick. Then there is this kind of pressure to fit these kind of molds, especially in the ballet world that we have. Maybe you have parents that are quite competitive while you're not competitive, or you have parents that are supportive, and then you miss them even more. There are many, many things to go together. And then you have educators as well that maybe not telling you strive for excellence, but strive for perfection. Then you get this perfectionism aspect in as well. It can be really, really difficult to handle. And once I always feel like, also from my own experience, once it's established, it's very
Oh,
difficult to
yeah.
change that then
Oh, yeah.
again.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Especially, I think, coming from an educator, it's kind of like their first, like, they really put a lot of power into what an educator tells them, right? Would you agree? Like anything an educator tells them, they kind of believe wholeheartedly. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Because I think an educator is so close to that dancer as well, because they're mostly together with them, apart
Yeah.
from the peers, of course, the other dancers. And they're seen as specialists,
Mm,
especially if they've been dancers themselves, which many have. And some take a bit more responsibility in handling this and maybe saying, I'm an educator now, not a dancer, but
mm,
I use this expertise I have, and others maybe build a bit more on that
mm.
role they used to have. So it can be quite dangerous, or rather, that the educator has a lot of power and
Yes.
needs to use their power very wisely.
Yes. And not
But
overstep the boundaries. Yeah.
I'm
Yeah.
sometimes unsure as well if we don't just push educators out into the dance world and say, now you're an educator, and we don't really do so much to support them.
Oh, I think that's an interesting thought too. There isn't much support for educators.
No, if you think about it, I mean, there's no international kind of educational pathway you can go as an
No.
educator, and then you're certified. For example, if you think about safeguarding of dancers nowadays, for example. And
Yeah.
I think that's a problem both for the dance world and the dance teacher.
I think
Because I
that's,
see,
yeah.
yeah,
I think that's why there's so many like different little ones that have popped up. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah.
Like Safe and Dance International, for
Yep.
example, is big
Hmm.
now, which is absolutely amazing.
Yeah.
But still, there are many dancers that say, "Oh, my teacher doesn't know about this and that," or the educators say themselves, "I don't know about psychology. I would
Mm.
like to know that, but I don't have the time to do it
Mm.
because I have so much to do." So it's all kind of interjumbled with each other with these timetables. And do we want too much, or like skill wise, in skills acquiring wise? Should we, move gears a little bit more slower,
Mm.
or is it the right amount that we put
Right.
on the dancers right now? It's yeah,
It's a toss up.
exactly. It's really a
Science,
toss up.
yeah,
It is.
science will tell us.
It is. Yeah, definitely. There's so many things really that are kind of not quite working out.
Right.
It's almost
It's
like a rat tail. Once you try to kind of dissemble it all falls a bit apart.
Yeah, so I think some of the change isn't going to be easy with dance science. Some of the things can be easier to implement, but I think a lot of the other ones are going to be like mountains, mountains, more mountain, a little mountain, a big mountain.
Definitely, definitely. I also see it like that. But I always like to think, like, being now an optimist, that it's possible to do.
Of course, I believe that too.
There's a generation shift that needs to happen, because
Yes.
we see now, just when I'm thinking, when I started and people were, for example, confused about their gender,
Mm,
or they felt they were gender fluid, there was no word for it. And now this is much more a
right.
thing
Yes.
that I know much less about than maybe
Mm,
younger people know about, even
right.
though I'm old. But yeah,
And that's just another way of like how times evolve, right? And we kind of just like have to learn how things adjust, right? Yeah. It's just like part of human evolution, right? Yeah.
definitely.
Yes.
But I feel that dance science really has a role there to
Mm,
play, and we do play it. I do feel when I go, for example, to Adams
mm-hmm.
conferences, that we do play the roles. We do our best to kind of instill it to the next generation too, and be wrong and sometimes think what we know now might not be
Is
what it applies for tomorrow.
exactly. And that's
Yeah,
just kind of part of how science is too, right? We're always like learning and pivoting. Yeah.
exactly. But
Yeah.
that's what makes it exciting.
That's,
Yeah.
yeah, me too.
Mhm.
So, what advice would you give a student interested in pursuing your specific field?
I can just tell you, be curious. What I did, because I really wanted to do a PhD when I did my master's in dance
Oh.
science, I just approached many people.
Mm.
And the great thing about the dance science world, maybe compared to other science fields, is that people are incredibly open to talk to
Yes.
you.
Yes. The
Incredibly nice,
connections. Yes. Mm.
really. And
Mm.
I just think just make it happen for yourself. Talk to these people, get opinions, see where there are opportunities, and get connected, because
Mm.
that's when things are starting to happen mostly. I felt
Mm.
like when I started networking, it was like, oh, I can write an article with this person, or I can
Yes.
go and maybe guest lecture there. So people are interested in you.
Mm.
Just figure things out, and if you feel something is interesting that you heard, just go and get more information on it. Don't be shy.
Yeah.
Email people.
Yeah. I mean, it really is like a one big family, you know? Like, if you don't know a certain person, you probably know like a common friend who knows. You know what I mean? It's just like kind of
Exactly.
everyone's like interwoven somehow.
Go to the conference and you say like, oh, I didn't know you know that person.
Yeah, that's constant in my life.
Yeah, exactly. I have the
Like,
same thing.
oh,
Oh, you know that person.
yeah, I grew up with them. You're like, oh, it's
Yeah,
crazy.
exactly. Oh, I went to university with them, a long time ago.
Yeah,
It's like, oh, really?
it's
You're lucky.
it's never
But
ending.
I think it's the best thing is really to just be curious and not let yourself being stopped by certain barriers.
Mm,
There are always possibilities to do what you really want to do.
yeah, if you want to do it, go for it. I agree.
Yeah,
Yeah.
completely.
So, what have you learned that you wish you knew as a young dancer? This is usually people's like favorite question.
Oh, it is a really good question because it's something that really popped up for me a lot
Mm.
when I did dance science, the dance science degree. I think I would have loved to know that other people could be my learning resource,
Hmm.
both like physically when I try to learn a choreography or
Mm.
anything else, but also just mentally when they did something really well or had a good mindset. Because how I grew up in that drama and dance world was that I have to look over my shoulder or there's a competition, and it was very, very
Ah, it
competitive.
was harsh. I see. Mm.
It was very
Mm.
harsh. So I wish somebody would have just told me that kindness goes further than
Mm.
pettiness,
Mm.
and that I could actually just relax and learn from others and take my time with that. I would really, really wish I would have known that.
So do you think like the harshness of the environment also affected like how you perform like physically too? I'm
Yeah,
curious. Yeah.
definitely.
Hmm.
Oh yeah, yeah. I both mentally and physically, I feel I was very prohibited by myself.
Mm.
I always felt like I need to be the best. I
Mm.
need to be good. I need to show that I'm worthy of being there. Instead of just thinking I'm good enough as I am. If they don't like it, too bad. I did my best, and that's what I'm here for. I'm here to learn
Mm.
and to get better, not to be the best, but to get better.
And was it coming from like the higher eds and like the teachers and the choreographers, or more from like the students that you were dancing with?
Both
Hmm.
at that point,
Oh,
definitely both.
geez.
I did have a leader that was very like they yeah he favored people a lot.
Hmm.
Both places have been, and then that kind of it was very contagious with the peers as
Mm.
well. That they then were kind of competitive among each other.
Mm.
Once they were friends, then they were not.
So
If
like cliques, kind of like separate cliques. Yeah. Yeah. I see.
Oh yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. But I've also been in other groups where this was not an issue at all,
Hmm.
and people were much more open minded, and this was no issue. But then I also performed better. I just thrived much more.
And that's the thing too is, people think that it requires this like harsh environment, right? When there's a fine line that you can find, right? They can strive for healthy excellence without it pushing past a certain line, right?
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
I was lucky enough 2 years ago to do a talk with Dr. Mustafa Sarkar, He's at Nottingham Trent University. He's a specialist in resilience. And he said it really well. He said there is a high challenge environment. So it's very challenging, but it should be high in support as well.
Oh, I like that.
And that was really, really good to hear that, because I think it makes a lot of sense, both physically and mentally, that if you have support from your teachers and they see individuality, they value who you are, and they take your learning pace and don't just instill it on you. That if you have this kind of environment, you work much better than when you have the other one was like an unrelenting environment, which would be high challenge and low support. Then you're really like, I think then you're sinking, and you're not swimming but sinking.
And you'll feel safer too, which is kind of what you were saying.
That would be a very safe environment, because everybody could learn at their own pace.
Right.
They would see each other's competitors. They would see each other's learning resources, which is, of course, ideal.
Yeah, I like the term seeing our peers as learning resources. I really like that. Yeah. Because we know that competitiveness is a big thing in dance too.
Oh, yeah. I mean, it is also a bit natural, because you have just a certain amount of roles, a certain amount of positions.
Hierarchies.
Yeah. It's not easy to navigate that without being competitive. But I do think you can be ambitious,
right,
without being overly competitive with each other.
And kindness can go such a long way.
I really think kindness goes much longer, because you never know when somebody all of a sudden is in a company and you're going to audition for it. You don't know when somebody
that's true.
Needs help, and you help them, and then maybe they can help you back when you really need it. You never know.
Yeah, I like putting it in that kind of statement. I like that.
Yeah, it's just kind of
never know.
We do that a lot in psychology. We try to see also the strength in people, and kind of at least that's how I work on my research team that I'm part of work, the sprint team, we call each other. We believe a lot that people have strengths, and they learn better when you take these strengths and you use them to kind of prop up your weaknesses, or you learn something new.
I love that.
Yeah.
So where can people learn more about you, and how can they access your resources? We'll talk a little bit more about this in part 2, but if you just wanted to give us a little snippet, that would be wonderful.
Yeah, I'm part of the sprint team at the University of Birmingham. That's where I'm doing my PhD. So on their website, there's more you can read about the research I do and myself, but also on the REDE website, which is the website for the National Academy of the Arts in Oslo.
Awesome. So I will link all of that on my podcast page. And then as a wrap up to part 1, if you have to offer one little tidbit of wisdom to our audience today, what would that be?
I think keep curious, and be to those dance researchers out there that are established. Be open to welcome other people in, and give young people a chance to really get into the field they want, because we do need them.
Yeah. It doesn't need to be gatekept, right?
No,
we can have
not.
Open arms to people, because people have to start somewhere. They're not.
And it's hard to get in. It really is.
Yeah. So I like that. I think it's important that we open and have that sort of receptivity, with ourselves too. Yeah. I really like that. Thank you.
You're welcome.
All right, everyone. We're heading into part 2 of today's wonderful conversation with Michelle. First, can you tell us a little bit about what you do as a dance psychology researcher?
Yeah, I am a PhD student at the University of Birmingham in the UK. So what I'm doing right now is that I'm working on my project, which is about mental skills training in dance. So we're trying to build a mental skills training program for dancers. And in the first round now for my PhD, it's going to be on freelance dancers, because they have very little access actually to these kind of mental resources, but as of course not really to a physiotherapist or anything. So we try to target them to actually help them. So that's what I'm doing right now, actually. Yeah.
I see. And what year are you in? I'm just curious.
The first year.
First year.
I just got a master's. I'm actually my second year, because I did a master's first in social research, which was part of my PhD, to just get all the modules out of the way.
I see.
Now I'm doing the research.
Oh, I see. So the freelance dancers, are they like professional, like at that age? Okay, cool. That's
Yes, they
awesome.
are
Yeah. Yeah.
professionals. Yeah.
And so they kind of
Yeah.
like hop around and get different jobs in dance.
Exactly.
I
They're
see.
self-employed and they work from job to job basis.
I
Yeah.
see. So they don't have access. So that's awesome.
Yeah. Yeah. We try our
Yeah.
best. They're under research, very much so, and we know very little about them really.
So you got to start somewhere, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
I
Just
just
you got to move the needle at some point.
exactly, yeah. But they deserve some attention
Of
in dance
course.
science.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
then, people after you will be like, oh, there's, we can start with that too, as a foundation. Yeah.
I mean, there were some people that did it before in
Oh,
psychology.
okay.
Shida, for example, Maria Kolitsida, but we still know very little. And
What
as I
dance?
said, they don't have the same information as other people do.
Can you tell us a little bit more about the services that you also offer?
Yeah, I mean, one of the things I do is that I go and guest lecture. I'm a guest lecturer at the Oslo National Academy of the Arts, for example. I go there every year to do dance psychology. But I'm also mentoring dancers. I've done that before as well. That I went to the youth ballet, for example, in Norway, and I mentored different dancers that just had some challenges, or they felt like maybe they're not developing as they should. So I'm also doing that.
I see. So is that mentoring for like career stuff too, or more just like mental skills?
More mental skills.
Okay.
And I'm also, should I say, quite strict with that because I'm not a registered sports psychologist,
I
for example.
see. Yes.
So I'm doing certain things, but not others.
Yes. So you're keeping that line, which is important. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I know it can be hard if they're like asking you questions and you're like, ah.
Yeah, I mean, but I mostly have people I could ask that are
I see.
sports psychologists
Yeah.
or psychologists that I would say, look, I can be a bridge to this person.
Right. Yes.
If, for example, an eating disorder or a very heavy depression, then
Right.
I would not treat that, for
Right.
example.
So you have like your referral list ready to go. Yeah. Again, it's those connections, right? Somebody knows someone who knows someone who knows someone.
Exactly. And working with people that you think or are reliable as well, I think is really important.
Yeah.
Because I did hear on social media, especially, that dancers said, "Oh, but I went to this kind of mental, I don't know, trainer or anything, and they were not really good, or they just told me to breathe." Then you should know this is maybe not a person you should go back to if it's like that. Yeah.
And that brings up a interesting thing that I say a lot is it's hard on social media because you don't really know. Sometimes you don't really know if the person is coming from like an actual certification or education or like, science back information, or if they're just kind of like coming out of nowhere. It's challenging.
Yeah, especially in the dance world where we give a lot on, this was a former dancer now turned
Yes.
XYZ.
Yes.
And this is not always a bad thing. Sometimes it's absolutely fantastic what they do. And then other times, as you say, it can be a bit shady or you don't quite know.
Yeah.
Because there's no certification or anything. I mean, in UK, there is a register.
Oh, okay.
It is called HPC. And if you're registered with that, then it's legit. But not everybody that would be good is registered there, for example.
I see. Yeah, there's not really, I don't think there's really stuff like that here in the US.
No, I haven't heard of that either, but I would not know enough about that, to be honest.
Because I think it's hard because, again, anything that dancers see, I think they're kind of like easy to trust, They're just like immediate, like, oh, that must be right if I see this dancer doing it and she could do a pirouette, right?
It's exactly. Like, oh, and, I want to be like this.
Yes, so the modeling. Yes.
Things,
Yes. Yeah.
But I think dancers have to know they're individuals.
Yes.
And what works for the person next to you doesn't have to work for you, and it's completely fine.
Yes. Exactly. Yeah. What are some of your challenges as a dance psychology researcher?
Oh, I think there are quite a lot of barriers. I think the biggest one is to get people to trust you to go and give talks or to lecture or to do workshops or something. Because I do feel it's still quite blocked off sometimes, or that people get a bit like, oh, what are you doing to my dancers? It is a bit like it's still a bit difficult to get a foot in. That's what I think is the most challenging part. To when you have all this knowledge and you have a good network of people that you know that would actually they could go and also give talks, for example, or support you. There is no opportunity to go and do it.
And I'm curious too, how do you kind of see that contributing with young dancers as well?
Yeah, you mean that they don't get the access,
Yeah,
for
that they don't
example?
have that
Yeah,
access. Yeah. It's a really
yeah,
interesting thing to think about.
it is because you always think then where do they get it from? Again,
Mm,
how do they learn mental skills that they would need to enhance their performance
right.
or
They
their
wouldn't.
minds?
Yeah.
Where do they get it from? Social media,
Mm,
YouTube. There's a lot of stuff there, which is not necessarily good. I mean, I love YouTube. I go a lot to YouTube myself, but you have to know what you're looking for and that the person telling you something in a video is actually legit. And you should have somebody that goes with you and does that with you.
mm,
I do think that's safer than just going on a journey by
of
yourself.
course.
For the
Yes.
best, basically.
And so what is kind of like your response if there's like, let's say like a studio or a company who's hesitant to hire you as like a dance, with this dance psychology lecture that you offer?
Mm. I think I'm mostly just asking a little bit, do you do anything
Mm,
to do that?
mm,
Do you see certain challenges that a dancer
mm,
has?
mm,
And what are these challenges? Are you really confident that you can take care of these
mm.
challenges? Because then mostly when
That's
I'm asking this, people get like, oh, actually, no,
yeah.
it's a bit difficult. And
Yeah. They're like,
I,
actually.
I do like to ask questions. I learned that the very hard way that
Mm,
it's better to ask questions and be
mm.
open for the replies you're getting than like falling with the door into the house and say like, here I am.
I
Look
love
at me,
that.
all this knowledge. So, yeah, I think it's better to ask questions and really think what they actually say to you, and
Because
that's
then
what
you're
you should
kind
do.
of getting into their space and seeing how they operate, not necessarily just trying to go in and just like fix, I need to fix you, but just like seeing like, okay, how are they operating on a daily basis? Like you said, what are they struggling with in their classes?
Yeah, and who they are. I mean, also if the dancers raise something when I go and give a talk, it's always good to take the perspective of this other person, maybe a teacher or
Mm,
something that came up, and think, okay, is there something we can do together to help this teacher then? Because now I hear all these challenges. What can we actually do to create a solution here
mm,
to that to create a better space or something?
mm,
And as you say, you go into that space.
mm.
It's you don't intrude into the space, but
Right.
you're in a different space, and you have to respect these hierarchies that are
Yes,
existing and
exactly.
groupings and
Yeah.
everything. Yeah.
Yeah, you can't just go in and, sweep, start sweeping. I'm like, okay, we're going to
Yeah,
start from
well,
ground zero.
exactly, and it is. I don't know if you feel like that, but I feel, especially after you're done with the dance science, like the basics, you always think like, oh, I have to go and I change that because it's
Yes.
really bad for the
Yes.
dancers.
Yeah.
And you mean so well, but then you really put people off because they feel like,
Yeah.
oh no, 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 this is too much. Yeah,
People can kind of sense that energy sometimes. Yeah.
yeah,
If you go
yeah.
into it a little bit too like, let's change. Yeah.
Let's change everything.
Yeah. Yeah. Or
That's
yeah,
wrong.
just sweep everything off.
Exactly, and mostly it's also really good to see what they do right. I
Mm,
like to go and see what is actually going really well here.
I love that.
How can we take that and then build upon what's going really well?
Yeah, because there's
And
a reason why that one thing is going right, right?
exactly,
So it's
there's a
like
reason
digging
why they,
in.
they still have dance students or dancers
Mm,
there that like to
mm,
work there.
mm.
There's a reason why freelance dancers love to be freelancers as well, for example.
And again,
Yeah.
this is a way of like kind of like validating what I say a lot is change doesn't always have to be like we were talking about large and sweeping, right? It can be like one tiny little thing can be changed, right? Would you agree?
Yeah,
The
absolutely.
tiniest
That's also
thing.
why I'm saying in talks that if you feel what I'm telling you is too much,
Hmm.
do just 5 minutes of journaling at the end of a class, for
Hmm.
example.
Yep.
That's all that is sometimes needed to just start
Yep.
somewhere.
Start
Yeah,
somewhere and that will, you know, leaping into other things.
exactly.
Yeah.
Yes, absolutely. I agree.
So what's your favorite part of doing this?
Being with the dancers, definitely.
Of course.
I love to be with the dancers and work with them, because mostly or every single time I go somewhere and give a talk or workshop or I mentor somebody, I always learn something new that I did not know before. So it's almost like we grow together.
Of course,
And
yes.
I just absolutely love to hear about the experiences, and also if they prove me wrong, if I can go and say, "Oh, this theory," and they'll be like, "No, actually, that's not really resonating with me. That's really interesting."
And, I think that's really powerful because even you, as a researcher, as a PhD researcher, you're still going into your situations with an open mind that you still have things to learn. And I think that's like the best way that you can approach it.
Yeah, I
And
mean, I think you need to have this curiosity for learning.
yes,
Um, if I don't know if you think that as well,
of
but
course.
especially as a PhD
Oh,
student,
yeah.
it's so humbling to do a PhD because it's always something you didn't know. And
Always.
somebody told me in the end, when you have your Viva, that the Viva will be about what you don't know yet, which is it's a bit daunting, but a bit exciting. It's like, yes, what don't I know yet?
What don't I know? Yeah. I think that's really, again, it's very powerful because you could go into these situations and, I know everything,
No, exactly.
Yeah.
I don't like to do that. I really like to just go in and think, what can I learn myself in this situation? Also, if I go wrong, if somebody says, I can't really connect with what you're saying, it's like, oh, that's interesting. Let's talk about that.
Because it's okay to be wrong, right? Even as even as a researcher, you don't have to have all the right answers, right?
You have to be wrong. I think
Right.
sometimes you just have to be wrong.
Yeah.
It's hard to be wrong. It's hard when somebody shows you you're wrong. But I do think we learn the most when we're wrong, and we
Right.
can go and learn from that.
And maybe the mental skill didn't work for one dancer, and maybe it works for five other dancers, right?
Yeah, and I think we mostly still tend to teach anything just once in one way. And we should probably, even mental skills like, I don't know, visualization or imagery, anything like that, should be taught in many different ways, that you will get more people hooked on this knowledge if you do it in several different ways than if you just do it in one way. It's almost like I was really bad in math when I was small because I had a teacher that just told me that in one way and just repeated this one way. And I maybe should have learned it in a different way than he did.
And it stuck with you, you're saying too, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
So it sticks with these young dancers too.
I think it sticks better when you are engaging them and not just talking at them. You're talking with them, engaging.
Yes. That's like, preach that, because that is 100%. I agree. Yeah.
Wow, exactly.
You have to
Even if
like,
it's anatomy or anything.
yeah, you have to like sit with them. Yeah. Not just
Yeah.
preach. Yeah. I love that. So, what is maybe one piece of wisdom that you've learned from this whole experience?
Oh, I think that curiosity for learning will always save my day or save me or push me forward. That if I lose that curiosity, then I need to go into myself a little bit. Because with this curiosity comes enthusiasm to make a difference, without losing the ability to actually listen to people.
Oh, the
Really.
listening is important too. Yes.
Oh, yeah, I think so. And I try to become a better listener. That's the thing. I think the wisdom is a bit like that. The further I go, the more I know that I don't know much.
Yep.
And that
That's
I have always need other people to ask. I don't know if you've seen Oppenheimer recently.
No.
It's I mean, you probably heard a lot about it, but to me it was really an ode to research, because it was like Oppenheimer going around asking people, like, I don't know this, I researched that, I don't know this, but you researched that, so let's go together and build the atom bomb, basically, which is bad, but how they portrayed how he worked with a team in the end, that is for me another such a wisdom, a takeaway, that I can never be alone in something. I go further if I work with other people.
So you do better when you have those connections and when you like nurture those. Yeah.
Yes, because I think nobody can always know everything. There are always people that it's almost like a puzzle.
Right.
People are puzzle pieces that you will need their knowledge and their insights.
And again, I think that's like a powerful thing for, again, you as a researcher, but still going in as like, you don't know everything.
No, I mean, I feel anyway, a PhD is a bit like you starting completely from scratch,
Yep.
and you go like, I don't know anything.
And you're like drowning constantly. You swim back
It's
up,
very,
you drown. You swim back up, you drown.
yeah, exactly. Then you think like, I think I know what I'm doing, and they say like, oh
Nope.
no, missed it. Sorry,
Wrong.
missed call.
Isn't it lovely though? Being able to do it every day? Yes.
It's an immense privilege. I
Mm-hmm.
really feel privileged that
Mm.
I get to do it. I'm funded to do this. And I know some people want it and they don't get this opportunity. So I
Exactly.
really, really try to embrace it.
Yeah. Some people want to do PhDs, yeah, and just don't have the opportunity. Yeah.
Yeah, and especially
So
dance PhDs. I mean, they are very, very
they're
rare.
few and far
Very,
between. Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. Mine isn't health and human performance, but yeah, it's nice that yours is dance specific.
Yeah,
Yeah.
mine is in sport and exercise
Oh,
science,
okay. Okay.
but kind of then linked
I
to
see.
the
With your
field that I'm,
dissertation. Yeah. I see.
yeah.
Awesome. Well, so thank you so much for today's amazing conversation. I really enjoyed it.
I enjoyed it too. Thank you.
Yes. All right, to wrap up today's wonderful, wonderful conversation with Michelle, I'm just going to highlight some of the summary points. So, one of the things that she really touched on, and this might be like my favorite thing that we talked about today, and even though she is a researcher in dance psychology, she still goes into her teaching environments in a way that she always wants to stay curious and wants to keep learning. She's willing to admit when she's wrong. And, she really made clear that she doesn't like just going into environments kind of with holding all the power and not really willing to have like open and honest conversations, right? So she goes into an environment as also that she knows that she's also going to learn, as the dancers are also learning from her. So it's this nice, healthy relationship where, again, she's not just going into environments with all of the power and just, not really willing to listen to them, right? So I just think this is a really, really great testament and a really, really great, powerful statement into how amazing this is, that even though, again, she has all of this knowledge and all of this wisdom, but she still is humble in the environments that she teaches in. And I think that's amazing. She also offers lectures on this topic. So I do want to highlight that. And remember, I will link all of her wonderful, wonderful resources and all of her links right on my podcast page if you're interested in learning more about her. Again, we talked about dance psychology. We both agree that it's really a missing component in dance science. And unfortunately, there is not a lot of research on it. But her dissertation will be a part of that research, which is great. We also touched on how her experience dancing in harsh and competitive environments, how that impacted her, right? How that impacted her mentally and physically, right? Because I really clearly asked her, I was like, how did that also impact your dancing? Because I can imagine that you weren't really dancing your best because you weren't really mentally feeling your best. And she really, really also made that clear that this is also something that impacts her today, because after some of those harsh environments, she went on to dance in more healthy environments and she was kind of able to compare them in her head. So I just really, really enjoyed today's conversation. Thank you so much for joining me on this episode of the Dance Science Podcast. I'm your host, the Dance Scientist, and if you really enjoyed today's wonderful episode, please feel free to either leave a review. You can also comment right on the episode, and then you can also send me a direct message right on Instagram. Again, thank you for being here with us today, and I look forward to seeing you in my next episode.